Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing great. Welcome back to another discussion on the Analyst for 28th of September 2023. So looking at the table of contents, we find that the first issue that we will be covering is about the AFSPA or AFSPA that is extended in Manipur. Next we will be looking at the condition and status of elderlies in India. Next we will be looking at Joshimath and the land subsidence that took place there. Next we will be looking at the tiger estimation in India, and finally we will be wrapping up the session with the concept of credit rating in India. Before beginning the session, let me tell you the handout for this discussion is available in the description below, so do definitely check it out for your own convenience. Now looking at the very first article, we understand that the context is about the Manipur violence that is going on since the couple of months of 2023, and here the government of Manipur has extended the AFSPA Act. Now here why it is important, because in GS3 we have security challenges in India, and that is why it is becoming very imperative for us to study this issue very closely. Here we will be trying to cover the act which is known as Armed Force Special Powers Act, and we will be discussing the various provisions related to it. But before that, let us discuss the context. The context is that the Manipur government has extended the Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958 for another 6 months in some parts of Manipur, while the various parts and police stations on which it is excluded or included, they are not important for examination. What is examination is the Manipur issue which is going on, which has been discussed in the previous sessions, so I encourage you to please watch them. And today we will be looking at what is this AFSPA Act. Now see, we have to understand that the safety and security of the nation is very important. And you know, India and also all of the nations around the world are sovereign states. That means they have their national borders, they have their democratic institutions, they have their citizens to protect, and that is why any internal or external aggression needs to be countered with a brute force. But obviously there are various ethical challenges, there are various dimensions that we need to look at. But here we have to understand this very particular act was enacted by the British in 1940s to actually combat, or say to tackle, the issue of Quit India movement back then. If you remember, if you have studied in your history, the British government in 1944, they enacted some special provisions, and these special provisions in later India, in post-independent India, in the 1950s, they would become this AFSPA Act. This is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And why this act was continued despite the colonial, usage on Indians themselves? Because there were various insurgencies in India beginning from 1947 or 48 itself, particularly in our northeast regions. Now, particularly after independence also, this violence continued in the northeastern states. After that, in 1983, we know that the Sikh riots took place. Right? So in 1983, this AFSPA Act was also extended to Punjab and Chandigarh. Later it was repealed back from that. In 1990, this act was again imposed on Jammu and Kashmir. Right? So we can understand that to prevent or to facilitate internal security challenges and their implementation measures of peace and cooperation in the local communities, we need some act like this AFSPA. See, the full form is obviously Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and this act will be delineating some disturbed areas, and these disturbed areas are areas where some disputes are taking place. This can be on the ground of religion, this can be on tribal lines, this can be on language lines, this can be in the differences between some of the regional groups that have struggles or they have some differences between themselves. So it can happen that due to the diverse history of our entire, Indian society, right, due to the diverse nature of our Indian society, there can be some instances of disputes, and that is why some disputes can spiral out of control of even the local police or the state police, and even sometimes the armed forces also, and that is why we need some special acts like this. Right? Now here, who will be declaring these areas as disturbed? The governor will be in a state declaring this area as a disturbed area or if that is an UT or Union Territory, the administrator will be doing so. And this is under the section 3 of this AFSPA Act. Now here, after the governor or the administrator will be, say, issuing an official notification, then the center can be going ahead to deploy the central armed forces in those areas, right? And once a particular area is tagged as disturbed area, the special powers are to open fire or use fire, even causing death against any person in contravention to law. This is the very first point, that the armed forces can open fire and even cause death if the local, say, disputed communities who are in arms against each other, who are in arms against each other, and also who are up in arms against the state itself, the state institutions itself. So first, they are breaking the law. Second, they are carrying arms and ammunition against themselves or against the state also, right? Say against the police, against the armed forces. So, right, then they can arrest any person without a warrant, because you need a warrant to arrest someone. But here the armed forces are given a free hand to arrest anyone, right? If they have a reasonable suspicion, they can arrest anyone. And also if they understand that they are going to commit or about to commit a cognizable offense, or these are serious offenses. These are serious offenses, murder, rape. These are the serious cognizable offenses. Then they can also enter and search any premises without any warrant. Again, if you as a police officer, if you want to search someone's houses because you are you are under suspicion, so you need to have a warrant from the judge. But here, no warrant is required. And again, you can destroy, or the armed forces can destroy fortified positions, shelters, structures, as armed forces can see them, as hideouts where the criminals are escaping and, sheltering in. So they can also do this. Then again, under section 6, the arrested persons seize property to be handed to the police. So armed forces will not be keeping the, arrested people, the seized properties. They will be giving to the local state police. And the most important, the most controversial, one of the most controversial is this: protection against prosecution has been given to the armed forces. So anything that is being done here will be having immunity. And this immunity aspect has been debated later, which we'll be going to study. See, why it is needed? Why AFSPA is needed? See, due to internal security challenges, we understand it sometimes become important that the state as a parent needs to be very strict with its children, that is the citizenry. Sometimes it can happen that the citizenry can become too much violent, can become too much uncivil in nature. That's why sometimes it can be very constructive to build internal security. Then sometimes stringent deterrents are also needed. Sometimes to protect the rights of all, we need to restrict sometimes the right of few. This is the doctrine of some experts also. We need to also be aware that the sovereignty and the security of the nation is also important. See, all these are related points which kind of hints at the security problem. Security problem is the biggest problem for any state. So it needs to be ensuring the security aspect in its country. Finally, immunity to the armed forces is sometimes required because the armed forces in some emergency situations, in some terrorist situations, in some insurgency situations, they need to take some rapid actions. So that is why this immunity is sometimes required. But these are only the 3 or 4, needs, or say minor, or say even in cases of, serious conflicts, these are some even major benefits. But apart from that, there are some issues also. See, the AFSPA Act has been very, very controversial for these issues. The very first issue we can understand is the sexual misconduct that the armed forces have done in the Northeast, have done in the, Jammu and Kashmir region, particularly on women. See, direct evidence, directly or indirectly, cannot be, vouched for, but there have been allegations, especially Justice Verma committee have told that in areas which are controlled by armed people, or say armed forces, the probability of women crimes increase. Especially we can talk about Iram Sharmila, who is also known as the Iron Lady of India. She did irresistible fast for decades to solve these, or say to fight against these issues. And also she also stood for violation of human rights and autocracy in these regions, because we can understand that under these AFSPA states there have been various reporting of illegal encounters where people are being killed via encounters. Then there have been some mutilations, like brutal mutilations by the armed forces. Then there have been some reporting of basic needs, such as say the right to food, or say good amount of water. These are also sometimes impacted due to this continued violence and also to the presence of these armed forces. So there have been some reporting in the daily news sometimes due to these things. And also we can understand that section 7, which grants immunity, runs against the right to constitutional remedies that is available under the article 32. That means your right to go to the court is a fundamental right. So section 7, is it not going against your fundamental right? So this is another issue. Next we can understand that the AFSPA is a extreme condition, right, which are needed for extreme disturbed areas in India. Now the constitution also provides a kind of a similar provision in form of emergencies, national emergencies and precedence rule, right? But these two, under article 352 and article 356, this has a constitutional backing. This needs both of the houses of the parliament to actually pass these emergencies. Then only it can be implemented. But it is not the same with the AFSPA, where only the governor needs to mention this in the notification and the center will be sending the forces thereafter. So this is a very important thing. And finally, if we look at the report card for over 50 years of the history of this act, what did we see? We did not see decrease in violence or say insurgency events across say Northeast India. We did not see process which is going towards peaceful remedies, because this news is the very testament of it, that the Manipur violence is still continuing, right? So what is the report card? Did it lead to success? So that is why this has been questioned frequently. See, in judiciary, in the Indian judiciary arena, the constitution has been tested on two parameters. The very first parameter is under Article 21, which is giving us the fundamental right to life and personal liberty. And also the law and order, which is a state subject, this is also running against the federal constructs of our Indian constitution. So time and again there have been cases at the judiciary. The 1998 Naga People's Movement of Human Rights versus Union of India, in this case Supreme Court did not repeal this act. It upheld the constitutionality of this act mainly in the annals of sovereignty and national security. So it said that due to national security we need some extreme measures like this, because there are some insurgencies which are still continuing in India. So we need these provisions for the armed forces to control these disturbed areas for a particular period of time, because it said that there must be a periodic review. That means the government must do a periodic review every 6 months. Then the state governments must be consulted before actually imposing this act on the states. Now, the state governments also need to be consulted before a declaration of this act. Also, no arbitrary powers can be conferred to declare an area as a disturbed area. Right? So it cannot be on basis of any arbitrary evidence or any arbitrary thing that we are declaring an area as disturbed area by the governor. Then in authorized officer, such as the armed forces people, they must be using as minimum as possible force as needed, because it is about the lives of people, right? Even deaths have happened due to this, so minimal force must be used. And finally, the army must publishing some do's and don'ts in such events. And again in 2016, the Supreme Court reminded that the immunities which are available, right, especially in case of any unjustified death or any death which is a civilian death, that has no blanket immunity, that will be under the purview of the courts. Then there is also no absolute immunity under trial, under the Criminal Procedure Code in India. So also we need to rethink about the section 7 of this, right? Now, what are the recommendations? See, the recommendations say that are of the three types. First is about the repealing of this act. Second is about the 2016 judgment in where the Justice Madan Lokur gave his 10 commandments. So we will be looking at that. And finally, talking about economic and social development in these areas. See, with respect to repealing of this AFSPA Act, both the second ARC Commission, right, and the Justice BP Jeevan Reddy Commission, they told that they must be repealed, right? And these act can be subsumed into the UAP Act, which has similar provisions related to these activities. So we can subsume in this. And also the second ARC also told that under, a new chapter can be introduced in the UAPA, correct? And there must be grievance redressal cell in each district which is being described as a disturbed area. So these are the recommendations, right? So it has been told to repeal, but so far it has not been considered. And even we can see that AFSPA Act is being extended for around 6 months again. Then in 2016 judgment, the justice told that we must be following 10 commandments. Out of the 10, I have given a list of only 4 which are most important, which I feel all of the 10s are important, but for your convenience, right, if you can do this, these are enough. See, there must be a due warning given to the states, given to the local people that we are going to do this. Then we must be having empathy with the criminals, with the perpetrators of the violence. We must be understanding why they are becoming violent. We must be taking measures. If we can understand someone, we can genuinely feel their pain and then we can go on to solve, right? It is all about winning minds and hearts. It is all about winning minds and hearts, right? And also we can understand, if we are being compassionate enough, we can understand what is troubling them. Why are they in trouble with each other? Why are the cookies and meaties involved in this dispute? We have to understand the government as a entity. They must understand. And finally, we must be upholding dharma. See, it is a duty of the armed forces to keep peace and stability in any region through the use of force maybe. But that force must be minimal of nature, and that is the duty, because any armed forces duty is to maintain peace and stability, right? So peace and stability can be also be made with peace also, right? It cannot be made with violence, because violence breeds violence. So that is the thing. And finally, we have to understand, after winning minds and hearts of theirs, right, of the local people there, we must be going on to develop them economically and socially. We must be empowering them. Especially we must be, trying to give them more credit. We may try to give them institutions such as self-help groups where they can organize themselves, they can talk amongst themselves, they can gather themselves on an economic level, right? And also, the backward areas in these districts, they can also benefit from here, right? They can bring up their local cuisines, local art and architecture, and they can showcase them nationally. So we must be trying to empower them on an economic basis, and that is following from the minds and hearts to wallet, right? So these are the recommendations. Let us go to the second article, which is talking about the UNFPA's report on India Aging 2023. Here we can find that these are very important for GS 1 and 2, where we have population and related initiatives and also welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections of our population. And similarly, in 2020, under GS 2, right, this is to be noted, we found a question on the prospects of social development, right, related to the fields of geriatric and maternal health care. Now this geriatric term means refers to the old age population. Now we need to look at these trends which are there in the news right now, that India is aging, because elderly will be making up around 20% of the population by 2050. Now let us look at some of the data and let us understand the thing related to some data. See, if you can observe this figure, we can see this is the population groups, and we can see that the elderly population is expected to rise in the coming year. We know that in India we are going to face a demographic dividend in the coming years, right? That means most of the Indian population will be of working age. That means the economy can benefit actually, because more and more working people will be creating more and more jobs, more and more demand, more GDP. It is good for the nation. But the thing is that after that demographic dividend, what is there? We are going through a process that will be leading to most of the Indians being aged, right? So this is the trend that we can see, and these are the trends we can easily answers also with respect to these questions. See, this data which is there in the out in the UNFPA, this is on the basis of 2011 census, and also taking the 2017-18 longitudinal aging survey, which is also popularly known as the Lassie survey. Then we also have the population projections of Government of India and World Population Projection 2022. So these are all the reports. Then we have to understand the decadal growth rate of the elderly is at around 41%. This is a huge percentage of elderly population in the country, will be doubling to more than 20% by 2050. Then we can understand the report is telling that by 2046, the number of elderly people in India will be more than the number of children in India, that is between the age of 0 to 15 years. So we can say that India is kind of approaching towards Japan. And here we can understand the women have higher life expectancy both at the age of 60 and 80 years than men. And 40% of elderly in India belongs to the poorest wealth quartile, and 18.7% are without even income. So we can understand that they are also very much dependent. They want to be dependent on their children, on the government and on the rest of the society, because they are from the poorest background and do not have incomes. And also in the south we can understand how much actually they are more dependent. If you are looking at the old age dependency ratio, which is the number of people or say number of elderlies who are dependent on their sons or say daughters, on say society, on say government, that is higher than the national average at 20. And if you look at the Western India, this is at 17. This is also quite high, right? So this is the data that you can understand, and you can use this data in various parts of your answers. Now see, what are the issues? The very first issue is societal. See, with the increase of elderlies, there is no problem per se. But the thing is that, in our Indian society, we have a deep and profound respect for the elderlies, right? We see them on the streets, we see them in our houses, we see them in our relatives' places, and we respect their values. But the thing is that this is on the decline. These traditional Indian values are on the decline. Why? Because we as a society are becoming more and more individualistic in nature. We are becoming more individualistic, right? So this is the issue that we are facing right now, that now families tend to be with their own nuclear families, and they are kind of increasingly getting rid of elderlies from their homes. There are many reports, right? And this is kind of unethical and very sad to say that the society, when it is becoming more and more industrialized, developed, globalized, they are losing their value. And this is the transformation that we are going through, and this is the very bitter truth that is taking place nowadays. Then these traditional values, such as also institutions such as family, these are also eroding, and children are becoming more and more negligent of their parents especially, and this is a trend that is not very welcome, because parents, when they become old, they become dependent on their children, right? And it is a very sweet thing to also do, but nowadays, because the society is becoming highly individualistic, so this trend is decreasing on the period of time. And also we can understand amongst the elderlies, the elder women are the most hit, because often we can see in most of the cases elderly women are widows also. They are alone, they are having no income, no assets. In also rural areas, this is a more serious concern. So we can understand the plight of elderly women are more serious. Then we can understand when you get old, or when someone gets old, they lose their friends, they lose their value, they think, right? They think they lose their value. they are isolated, they are very lonely, they are having some emotional trauma, they are having deteriorated mental health. So these are the things they feel due to lack of companionship, right? Then about talking about finances, often people do not save enough for retirement, right? Because we can assume, or we can take a ballpark estimate that people will be working up to 65 to 60, say 8 or even to 70 years. And if they want to live for another 20-30 years, they need to have some savings. Retirement plans must be there properly, which is not there properly in most of the cases in India. Then also we can understand that, as parents, rightfully so, they can be dependent on their children. But again, this dependency due to this negligence is a bane for them. Working elderlies are also seen, because often when we go out on the streets, we see most of the Richka pullers, most of the street vendors, they are old, right? They are working hard to actually make a living. So they should not be actually working hard, because someone must be taking care of them, right? Then we can understand they are also facing issues of housing, because most often we can see in the news that elderlies are being put out of their homes. Then they are being left alone in their places. So this is another issue. Then the biggest issue that they feel is with respect to health conditions. They suffer from chronic illnesses, right? They suffer from diseases which just start with the old age. So with respect to the hospitals, with respect to the funds that they have, with respect to the care they get, right? Their health condition and also the mental health condition is often not very promising. So these are the conditions that they go through. These are the issues that they go through. And the government has taken some initiatives. See, there is an elder line toll-free connection, right, which is by the number of 14567. So I encourage all of you, those of you who are watching, to please spread this number to all of the people that you know, to all of the old people that you know, to actually get help in terms of, say, consultation, in terms of, say, emergency services which they can avail of, right? So this is a toll-free number, right? So do definitely save in your phones. Then we have Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana, which is a kind of pension scheme for the elderlies, right? Then we have an integrated program for older persons. This is taking care of some of the basic needs of, say, fooding, shelter of the elderly people. Then we also have Rashtriya Vayashri Yojana, which is assisting the elderly people with aids and assistive living devices to the BPL elderlies. Because elderlies, we can understand, they have some issues with their eyes, with their ears, because with age they lose sight, they lose the power of hearing also. So we need to give them hearing aids, glasses, so that they can live a good quality of life. And here this scheme becomes very important. Here actually the unclaimed deposits under the PFs, the EPFs funds are actually used for this particular initiative. Then there is also a very innovative scheme known as the Senior Care Aging Growth Engine. This is actually to promote entrepreneurship in something known as silver economy. See, silver economy is that economy which is dedicated to manufacturing, or say producing goods and services which the elderly people will be needing, such as clothing for elderly people, such as medicines, or say daily essential items which are designed specially for elderly people. So there is this particular initiative by the government which is trying to boost entrepreneurship in this silver economy, because we can understand again there is a good market potential going forward, because the elderly population will be increasing in the near future. So this demand for this silver economy goods and services will be increasing in the near future. And also India can also become the hub of exporting this, because most of the global populations are also aging, such as Japan, such as the West, they are also aging right now. So we can do this. Then we have another initiative known as Sampan project, which is trying to ease the pensioning system by bringing it online. It is a kind of portal where the elderly people can track their pensions. So here we can understand we need digital literacy also, right? So that is the thing. Also, there is another sacred portal for elderly, which will be a job and work portal where they can search for opportunities if they want any. Now, what is the way ahead in this? Given this trend forward, we have to understand the government can create a self-help groups, right, of these elderly people, so that they can organize themselves, they can discuss, they can get their own business ideas, and they can create this self-help groups, just like we have the self-help groups, right? Then we can have the elderly people live in multi-generational houses, where there will be kids, there will be middle-aged, teenagers, there will be adults. So these kind of, a nuclear family plus provision must be there, especially appealing to all of the people there to actually live with their parents, right? So that they can have a multi-generational household where we will be having, values and wisdom from, new times to older times. So it is a good thing, and also their mental health will be also better. Then we must be trying to encourage in situ aging. In situ aging means if we want to take care of our parents, we will be doing that in our own homes. So that is just in situ. So this is just taking care of our parents, right? And this is also about creating short-term facilities such as creches, right? Those elderlies who are on the streets, who do not have any home. So let us have creches and daycare facilities for them. And also we must try to promote more and more digital literacy provisions also. So these are the way forwards we definitely as a community, as a society, we need to take forward. Now the next issue, the next article is about GS3 subject of disaster management, about the Joshimath land subsidence that took place. Now here the context is that according to an expert study, 65% of the houses in this Joshimath area, if you can see from this particular map, this is the land subsidence zone where 65% of the houses were impacted, and this is according to the government report coming out. So before that, let us understand what is land subsidence. Before that, let us understand what is the word subsidence at all. See, subsidence is anything when there is a heavy load. When imagine that there is a heavy load on the top of a ground, right? It will be exerting some weight on the ground due to gravity pulling from beneath, right? For example, say, imagine a box in which you have sand filled. Now say you are putting a feather on the sand. Will the sand create a depression? It will not, because feather is kind of weightless, we can assume. Then if we put an iron ball on top, what will it happen? The sand will be giving way and will be creating a depression kind of, if you put a ball on the sand. So it is creating a depression, right? So similarly, the earth's crust causes this kind of depressions, which we know as subsidence, or some of the surface of the earth gradually settles, it depresses down gradually, or it can also happen suddenly. So this is the proper definition of land subsidence. It can happen due to natural and anthropological causes. The natural causes can be due to compaction of the sediments, because we know in the crust we have various sediments. So when sediments compacts, it will be creating a depression, it will be creating a subsidence. It becomes more heavy. So when things become heavy, they tend to get down by the power of the gravity. Then it can be also due to withdrawal of groundwater, because we know that groundwater is actually present under the ground in the earth's crust. Right, when we try to extract that groundwater for our needs, we are creating say empty space in that particular region which was earlier filled by the crust above. So when the groundwater is now released, the gravity is pulling the crust up, right? It is now pulling the crust, so it will be creating a land subsidence. It can also be due to karst terrain. This karst terrain means some sandstones, right, which are water soluble in nature. Now see, when the groundwater is trying to be soluble with the rocks, it is dissolving the rocks underneath, it is creating a hollow cavity, right? Just like the caves, which we know, caves are actually the hollow cavities underground. So when such hollow cavities are created and we have heavy structures on above the ground, it will be exerting a pressure. Then again, land subsidence will be happening. Due to tectonic activities such as earthquakes, this is a very possible scenario, as we can see here. When plates slip, when they slip downwards, right, due to this oblique structure, that again land can subside. When ice melting happens, and this will be putting pressure, you can understand this will be putting pressure on the surface, causing it to depress, and the adjoining region will be raised up, right? Now, some human induced causes will be regarding the extraction of resources such as oil, natural gas, coal, because when we extract oil, such as here, when we extract say coal from here, we will be creating some hollows, we will be creating some cavities, just like the extraction of groundwater, right? So this will be creating subsidence again. And also under the urbanization cause, when big cities are constructed, right, we can understand these big cities, big buildings have some weight of its own, so it will be putting pressure on the ground and it will be sinking. It will be creating a land subsidence, and this is what actually happened. And not only this, a combination of all of these natural and man-made things happened in the Joshimath event. Now see, let us understand this. See, Joshimath's location is one of the causes of the land subsidence there. Here, Joshimath is actually located around 1875 meters above sea level, which is quite high location, right? And it is also, if we can say, located on the hills and valleys of the Himalayas. So it is quite a high place, right? Now, we have to understand the topography. If we can imagine, right? If we can imagine, Joshimath is such at a place which is located in the middle slopes of a hill. So if this is a slope, it is located at the middle, right? And Karmasana and Dhagnala streams are on the west and east. So it is located here. On the west and east, we have two streams, and the places are very important. So do remember the names. We have Dhauliganga and Alaknanda on the south and north. We have again two rivers on the south and north. So look at imagine the topography. So it is actually a place which is surrounded by rivers and in the middle of the slope. So any unfortunate incident such as heavy, flash flood, say heavy rainfall, glacial outburst can have direct impact on this particular region which is surrounded by rivers in the middle of the slope and located quite high on the mountains. Correct? And it is also located in the zone 5 of seismic zonation map of the Himalayas, which is one of the most active earthquake zones in India. So it is also, apart from this, one of the active earthquake zones in India. Next, we can understand the unplanned development, unsustainable tourism, and the drainage water in that particular area is also highly deplorable. Why? Because back in the 1976, the Mishra committee report said that the slopes have deposit of sand and stone, which are quite fragile. And any urban development or urban settlement, if you try to develop in these areas, it cannot be properly sustainable in the near future. But then again, the authorities, the government went on to construct this particular proper township of Joshimath, right? We had a warning in the beginning. Then the government, through its Char Dham project, right, the Badrinath Road project by the BRO, it is creating some disturbances in already this vulnerable area. Correct? Then we have to understand the drainage water aspect is that, say this is the township, right? Here people use water for the daily use. Now the water, extra water will be seeping down. Now it will be seeping down beyond the soil to the rock portions of the underground. And here these will be dissolving the rocks there, because kind of these are made of soft stones and sand. Now when these areas will be becoming very fragile and soft, right, this will be giving way for the land above, and that is why when the ground becomes too much saturated with water, it will be developing a crack, right? And that is what happened. Due to this heavy seepage water going underground, this is dissolving the soft rock underneath, and this is creating a rift. Then also we have to understand, due to the Tapovan hydro project which is being constructed there, a tunnel has been made, and experts have said that this tunnel is also endangering this particular region. Now, the climate change impacts cannot be also ignored, because due to climate change we are seeing more and more cloudburst events, more and more heavy rainfall events, and this is creating more flash floods. More flash floods means more water will be percolating towards the underground and hence softening of the soil. Then some previous disasters such as the 1991 Chamoli earthquake, which was a very severe one, the recent floods which we see, which we talk about, right, which take place in the state of Uttarakhand, these also weaken this town over a period of time. Now here we have to understand the way ahead. What the experts are saying, that the administration must be taking steps to properly study the area. Properly scientific studies must be done, and the findings must be disseminated, or the public must be made aware of these particular studies. Right? This is a article very talks about that sometimes the government do not release the reports to the public. The public do not get aware, and hence they get trapped in such disasters. Then ecology also needs to be balanced. For that we need to relocate the people, because we have to understand that most of the people's houses have been damaged, and we need to relocate them to a safer place, right? And with this relocation, ecology can also be saved. Correct? Then drainage planning must be proper. We must be seeing that less and less pressure must be there on this particular ecosystem. And finally, we must be trying to plant more trees there, because trees will be reducing the soil erosion. When soil is less eroded, right, we can understand that water can be better absorbed by the soil and can be prevented from going down to the rocks. And finally, early warning system must be developed, right? This can be used by the remote sensing satellites, better use of satellite telephony technology. So early warning system must be there. Now the next article is talking about the recent Odisha government's plan to reconduct its own tiger census. Now here this is important because we have environment and ecology in our prelim syllabus. The context is that the government of Odisha is trying to do its own tiger estimation apart from the all India tiger estimation that was done in 2023. The report done in 2022, the report was released in 2023, right? Now the government of Odisha is facing some issues with the original report, because according to the original report, the tigers in Odisha have actually decreased, right? But let us not go into this debate. We will be looking at things which are important for our examination. See, let us look how tigers are actually estimated in India. Now see, tigers are majestic animals, right? Now we understand, we have all looked at tigers, and tigers are actually very popular in the South Asian and the Southeast Asian region of the world, right? In India, according to the last tiger census, we have around 3080 tigers in India, correct? And how can we estimate? Because there is a tiger census that takes place every 4 years in India. This is being conducted by the National Tiger Conservation Authority, which is under the Wildlife Protection Act, right? And here the environmental minister is the head of it. Then this survey is being conducted by the NTCA and with the collaboration of the state forest departments, the conservation NGOs and the Wildlife Institute of India. So they do what? They try to sample the amount of tigers in India. If you can see, the amount of tiger population is increasing over a period of time, and this is a very good thing for India as a whole, right? Now, tiger's scientific name is Panthera tigris, right? Indian subspecies name is Panthera tigris. So this is a small information for you, and another other kind of information for you can be related to tigers, are that none of the tigers are alike with respect to their stripes. So all tigers are different with respect to their stripes. And also let me tell you a very interesting fact, that all of the tigers have a different set of eyes. Now you must be surprised, right? Now what kind of eyes? Actually behind their ears they have some markings which are almost similar like eyes, so that their prey can be fooled, right, by their back. Actually, tigers are estimated in India by double sampling method. This is based on ground sampling method and also images from camera traps based on DNA samples, and all of these are also accounted for in the M stripes. in the M Stripes mobile application by the forest officials. Now, where are they found? They are found in these regions. We can see they are found in these regions, and also in the portion of the Indonesia. The amount of different tigers we can see here. We have South China tigers. We have the Amur, which is also known as Siberian tiger. Sumatran tiger is found in Indonesia. Indo-Chinese tiger and Royal Bengal tiger. Correct? So all of the places are mentioned here. You can see. And with respect to the protection status, we can understand they are under Schedule 1 of the Indian Wildlife Act. Under the IUCN, they are under endangered, and under the sides they are at the Appendix 1, which means they are highly protected species in the world. Now, the last article is about the Vedanta grouping downgrade in its credit rating. Now, this is important. Why? Because in economics, we have to understand what is the concept of credit rating. Correct? So, we have to understand that there is a credit score for everyone. So, what is that concept? See, there is a word known as credit worthiness. Now, say you want a loan, right, of say 100 rupees from a bank. Now, before this, you did not take any loan, correct? But you earn around say 200 rupees per month. So, the bank will know that since you are earning 200 rupees per month, you can pay 100 rupees loan if you are taking any. Correct? So, this is your credit worthiness. This means that if you are taking a loan or a credit, you are actually able to pay it back. Correct? Now, there are various factors that determine that. Now, say if you have taken a loan before and if you have paid it back, you are a good person according to the bank because you are paying the loan on time, right? So, it will be looking at your past payment behavior as a factor of credit worthiness. Another factor of credit worthiness will be loan portfolio. See, you get loan with respect to the security or with respect to the collateral that you keep with the bank, correct? Now, there can be, these are the loans which are known as secured loans. So, these are loans which are secured against your collateral. There can be another kind of loans which are not given any collateral or securities. These are called non-secured loans. Now, your loan portfolio means the amount of secured loans you have, amount of non-secured loans you have. So, the more amount of secured loans you have, better is your credit worthiness because you have more loans which are having some collateral as some backups at least. Next, the market reputation. If you are very famous, if you are a company like say Google, like Facebook, like say Infosys, Wipro, you are having a good market reputation, you have a good brand, so you can get easily a good amount of loans. And also, the future prospects of a business is also important. What is the business trying to do in the near future? Now, there are two ways in which various credit rating organizations or the organizations which calculate your credit worthiness based on these factors. And there are two ways. The first is telling that you are investment grade. Second is you are telling that you are speculative grade. See, investment grade means that whatever loans that you have taken will be growing in the near future. That means it will be giving some good returns in the near future. That means there is quite a very low risks, right? So this is the first type of category. The second category is of speculative grade. That means the loans that you have taken, for example, while calculating your credit worthiness, they will be seeing that there is quite amount of risks. So that is a speculative grade, right? So these are the grades on which this credit rating organization grades companies based on their loan portfolio, past repayments, reputation and future prospects. Here we have to understand that who will be calculated for credit worthiness. There will be both individuals, companies and government. Now, when you as an individual is going to take a loan, the banks will be looking at your property, at your assets, right? They will be looking also something known as your CIBIL score. The CIBIL score is one of the many scores for an individual to measure her credit worthiness. Companies will also be requiring loans for financing their business investments, so they will be also having their scores. And here, all over the world, there are some famous credit rating agencies such as S&P Standard & Poor, Moody's, Fitch, right? So they have their own measures of say measuring credit worthiness. They have several grades, right? They have several grades. The highest is prime grade, then high grade, then so and so forth. They have these numbers also. Now these, organizations, these agencies are actually worldwide, and they rates both companies and the governments, right? So they kind of give some important valuable insights as to how some companies are functioning, so that the investors will be properly educated beforehand. And also they also look at some governments, how big some governments' fiscal deficits or budget deficits are, to actually finance them with more loans in the near future. So their ratings are very important with respect to the world economy. And in India, we can understand that we have the Securities and Exchange Board of India, which will be regulating and which has the authority to authorize and control credit rating agencies in India. With respect to credit rating agencies, all of them are from the private sector, and some very famous we can understand is CRISIL, ICRA, right, CARE, Brickworth ratings. So these are all the important credit ratings in India, and these will be measuring some of the companies, right, some of the individuals, some of the governments also with respect to their credit worthiness. So this was all for the discussion today. I thank you all for being a very patient audience. All the best for your future endeavors. Thank you.